Beautiful day in Denby. Wonderful to have all of you here at the center of what was political power in old Warwick County, Virginia, and we're all on the last acre of Warwick County. Nice to be here. And now would be a good time to thank all of our returning members, who is the butter for our bread around here. We appreciate you. Your mere existence here increases the IQ of the room, so thank you so much. Welcome to all of our guests and friends, visitors as well. The distinguished men and women of old Warwick County had their own way of running things around here. That was if there was any need. A lot of times there just wasn't any need for governance, or courts or whatever. So long periods go by, they didn't need any help. But any vestige of that has changed 68 years ago in 1958, and we know what happened then. Consolidation of the city and the county. Our cousins of Newport News took over, but for 324 years prior to that, from the days of the old Warwick River County in 1634, these Warwickians served their free state, showcasing a unique flair for the old school tradition, even as new school approaches and railroads loomed on the horizon. Throughout its rich and sometimes obstinate history, Warwick County and its seat at Denby experienced much change, but the biggest change that would affect this area was war. Our brave soldiers are fighting right now, just as they have in the past, and they fight for causes both noble and contentious, including places Iraq and Afghanistan. The conflicts in Vietnam and Korea in the 50s, 60s, and 70s brought a surge of activity to this area. World War I and II significantly altered Warwick's landscape. The county's population swelled with hundreds of thousands of soldiers who then discovered the beauty of the peninsula and wanted to stay. Many returned after the war and were welcomed here to start their families. Let us not fail to mention the Civil War that just rampaged through here as well. Some of these wars, however, they feel like a little abstract. They were fighting for communism or terrorism or something like that. The Revolutionary War, in contrast, was more of a direct and a poignant affair. It struck at the hearts of the free souls yearning to escape royal oppression and live autonomously without the rule of the king. This spirit was reignited in old Warwick County because they already had it, but reinforcing the notion of the old free state that already had taken root. After the Revolution, Warwick embraced strong principles centered on liberty. The small county was managed in a Jeffersonian manner, often disregarding guidance from the Commonwealth or from the federal government. This essence of a free state persisted longest in old Warwick County. We hung on to it the longest of anyone around. The community's resistance to modern convention remained steadfast, stubbornly holding on until eventually it just couldn't. But here we stand today thanks to the spirited Virginians that we call our founders, often referred to as the radicals who fought for self-rule. These men pledged their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor. Our speaker today will be well versed in these ideals. We're fortunate to have him. Before we proceed with our main agenda, the Society has a little bit of business to attend to. We have plenty of time to elaborate and get into other details as the year goes on. This is just the first meeting, so we're fine. I'd like to highlight the fantastic programs we have planned for this year and offer tremendous thanks to our wonderful Secretary and Program Director, Ms. Mary Titusell. Clean narrative. A special thanks also to Sharon Mentor for managing our finances and all the other stuff we have. And she's not been feeling all that great and doing it anyway, so we appreciate her very much. A more somber note, Mark Wagner has unfortunately fallen and broken his arm. You guys have probably seen the card going around. If not, we'll give it to you. I jokingly say, well, he couldn't clap anyway, so. That's my little joke.
Getting better every day.
Getting better, good. Okay.
He's at the Newport.
Is he behaving himself?
The Convalescent Center rehab.
They make him behave. Okay. Our April 15th brings us Michael Steen. We had him speak in December. An excellent speaker. We enjoyed him very much. He's coming back in next month to talk about Thomas Paine's Common Sense pamphlet, which would be an interesting topic. Our May 20th meeting is looking like it's shaping up quite well. Our friends Patrick, Courtney, and Sophia from Fort East Archaeology, it sounds like to me they're going to deliver two different presentations, and also sponsor another barbecue lunch for everyone. So free food in May, come on. John and Betsy Collada have generously donated to us before. We have a new donation from them, and this is a wonderful panorama of Denby Elementary and High School as it appeared in 1913. I'll share this with you. There's we're going to instigate a little contest here if anyone can name anyone in this photo. None of you are that old.
What year?
1913. If you can name anyone in this photo, we've got a little prize. So, I don't think I can even name anybody. But I'm sure there would be a lot of familiar names to us. You know, Shakes and, Garrows and all that. So we appreciate John and Betsy for the donation. Very wonderful. We also got the oil portraits from them in the courthouse. If anybody wants to see them, they're really great. We have a few newsletters from January available if anybody wants one. There's some over here. Mary can get them for you. We have a new edition coming out for April, and it looks promising. Special thanks to Don Worsham for her work on this. We have a compelling article for April's edition, so it should be nice. Lastly, a reminder, your membership dues are due. Since this is the first meeting of the year, please see Mary Kay or Sharon to take care of that. If you've forgotten your wallet, don't worry, we'll send you a bill. There's no problem. So we need all the income. It helps us keep the wheels moving here, and we appreciate everyone. And now if I could get Mary Kay to come up and introduce our speaker. Put a wrap on this. Thank you. Don and I tried.
Get ready for the party, huh? You'll get that. I am delighted with the turnout we have today, and I'm also delighted with the speaker that it is my privilege to introduce. As you know, this is our season opening, and wow, fabulous turnout for this. This year, Darcy's already mentioned it, but this year, because of VA 250, does anyone not know what Virginia 250 is and what America is celebrating this year? Okay, I'll talk to you afterwards. But anyway, our program schedule this year focuses on many commemorative programs specific to the anniversary. As Darcy already mentioned, next month's program will deal with the orator, the writer, Thomas Paine, who was a real firebrand. His book, Common Sense, was a runaway bestseller during the colonial era and helped spark people's hearts and minds towards revolution. And for that one, we will have a return engagement by Michael Stein of the Waterman's Museum. You may remember we had him last year, and he spoke about the Virginia Raised by Benedict Arnold. He is coming back, and along with another individual, Bill Rose with Shades of the Past, who's a reenactor, who will be interpreting the character Archibald Carey, who was the chair of the Bill of Rights Committee. And this is going to be an amazing program. It's interactive, a lot of fun. There will be live music as well, so you'll be singing, you'll be wearing some costumes, so prepare to come for a fun learning experience. But we're here right now today, and our speaker is Patrick Henry Jolly, who, there are many people who, or not many, but there are several people within the state who portray Patrick Henry, but we have a direct descendant. We have the best Patrick Henry. We have Patrick Henry Jolly, who is a fourth and fifth great-grandson of the renowned colonial orator and governor, Patrick Henry. He is here today. He's going to tell us about his esteemed ancestor. If anyone doesn't know, Monday is the 100th anniversary of his infamous "Give me liberty or give me death" speech. 250 years, yeah, excuse me there. Yeah, sorry, wrong date. How do I not know that? But anyway, it happened at the Second Virginia Convention at St. John's Church in Richmond. And that would have been March 23rd, 1775. So, important date. You're not going to be there at St. John's, but you have other engagements elsewhere. But however, he's going to give us a little snippet of that important speech today, and that's what we need to know. Now, Henry his objective in that speech was to convince the delegates at the convention that inaction against British rule would have dire consequences, and that our country, our forthcoming country, was bound for war. We would eventually be fighting the British. He also argued that it was important to form a militia in order to defend ourselves. His words helped set the stage for our country's war for independence. So, if any of you haven't already put on your tri-corner hats or your bonnets, I encourage you to do so at that time. Miriam, I see you wore your hat. Thank you. You get the hat prize today. So at this time, it is my privilege, it is my honor to introduce you to Delegate Patrick Henry.
Good afternoon. I don't know what this strange thing I'm speaking into is, but I guess it makes it so you can hear me, right?
Right.
Although I really don't think I need it, but that's okay. As was mentioned, March 23rd of 1775, the Virginia House of Burgesses had been dissolved by the governor. If you've read your copy of the Declaration of Independence, you'll realize that this was not unusual. The governors throughout the colonies, whenever they felt fear, whenever they felt intimidation, they would dissolve the assemblies. We delegates went back to our individual counties and were re-elected to the Virginia Convention, this being the second of 5 of the Revolutionary Conventions. It was on the 4th day of this convention, Thursday, March 23rd, that I addressed the convention. And I put forth resolutions, as you mentioned, that called for Virginia to defend herself. I didn't call for a revolution. It was strictly for us to defend ourselves. A revolution would obviously occur. I put forth these resolutions, understanding that problems were occurring in Massachusetts, and they were bound to happen here. There was discussion on both sides of the proverbial aisle. Should we do this? Should we not do this? People were afraid. Understandably so. I was suggesting that we defend ourselves against the most powerful military force in the world. And who were we? As you mentioned, we barely had a militia. The counties had their committees of safety to a certain extent, and there were loosely formed militias. But it was time that we firmed up and put ourselves into a posture of defense. The discussion occurred on both sides, as I mentioned, and finally I rose in defense of my resolutions. Mr. President, I was addressing Peyton Randolph at the time, the president of the convention. Mr. President, no man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as the abilities of the very worthy gentlemen that have just addressed this House. But different men often see the same subject in different light. Therefore, I hope it will not be thought of as disrespectful to these gentlemen if, entertaining as I do opinions of a character very opposite to theirs, I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The question before this House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. And in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought be the freedom of the debate. It is only in this way we can hope to arrive at the truth and fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and to our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time for fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason towards this country and guilty of an act of disloyalty against the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly kings. Now, Mr. President, it is natural for man to indulge the illusion of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes to the painful truths, listen to the song of the siren, until she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men? Engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be among those who, having eyes, see not, or having ears, hear not the things which so nearly concern our temporal salvation? For my own part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth. I'm willing to know the worst and to prepare for it. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no other way of judging the future but by the past. And judging by the past, I wish to know what there has been in the conduct of the British ministry for these last 10 years, which justifies the hopes with which these gentlemen have been pleased to solace themselves and this House. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? Trust not, sir. It shall prove to be a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed by a kiss. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition comports with the warlike preparations which cover our waters and darken our land. Tell me, are fleets and armies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation? Tell me, have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called in to win back our love? Let us not be deceived. These are implements of war, of subjugation. These are the last arguments to which a king resorts. I ask, gentlemen, what means this martial array if its purpose be not to force us into submission? Can gentlemen assign any other possible motives for it? Has Great Britain any enemy in this quarter of the world to call for all this accumulation of navies and armies? No, sir, she has none. They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They're sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains which the British ministry have been for so long forging. And what have we to oppose them? Shall we try argument? We've been trying that for the last 10 years. Have we anything new to offer on that subject? We have held this subject up in every light of which it is capable, but it has been all in vain. Shall we resort to entreaty or humble supplication? What terms shall we find which have not been already exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, let us not be deceived any longer. We have done everything that could be done to avert this storm which is now coming on. We have petitioned. We have remonstrated. We have supplicated. We have prostrated ourselves before the throne and implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of the ministry and parliament. Our petitions, they've been slighted. Our remonstrances have produced additional violence and insult. Our supplications, they've been disregarded. We have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne. In vain after these things may we indulge in the fond hope of peace and reconciliation. There is no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve the inestimable privileges which we have been for so long engaged, then we must fight. I repeat that. We must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left us. They tell us that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But I ask, when shall we be stronger? Will it be next month, next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed? Disarmed. With a British guard stationed at every house. Shall we acquire strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance while lying supinely on our backs, while hugging that delusive phantom of hope, until our enemies shall abound us hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make proper use of the means which the God of nature has placed in our powers. 3 millions of men, armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a nation as that which we possess, these men are invincible against any force the enemy shall send against us. Besides, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of the nations, and He will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle is not to the strong alone. It's to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it's now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. The clanking can be heard upon the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable. Let it come. I repeat that. Let it come. It is in vain to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear? Is peace so sweet? is to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. For I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I was rummaging through my pockets because I was looking for something as I was talking that I couldn't find, but now I did. You all have the distinct honor, I guess, of being, to my recollections, the only time that I did liberty or death without a paper cutter in my hand. Patrick Henry was holding a whalebone paper cutter. Looks like a letter opener. Actually, it looks like a popsicle stick. In his hand. And with the words liberty or death, he broke the chains. And with the word death, pretended to plunge it into his heart. But I apologize. As I was talking and scrounging around in my pockets, I couldn't find it. I've got Sharpies, cell phone, another Sharpie. People love their autographs. Eyeglasses. This is from you, thank you. But I couldn't find this. So there's a little story behind this, though, that I will share after I put all this stuff back in my pocket. There was a Roman soldier and senator by the name of Cato. Anybody ever heard of Cato? Okay. In case you didn't know, there's two Catos. This is Cato the Younger. Don't want to get them confused. Cato spoke out against Julius Caesar. He was at a time of Caesar. And he spoke out against, in essence, broad story, he spoke out against Caesar's way of leadership. Let's just put it that way. And on the Senate floor, Cato is said to have uttered these words. It is now not the time to speak of aught, to speak of nothing, but of chains and conquest, liberty or death. Okay. There was a play that was written in the early 1700s, I want to say 1713, by a British playwright by the name of Joseph Addison. Addison wrote a play called Cato, the Tragedy, and it was the story of his life. And so that's kind of where this quote comes from. So he didn't do it on the Senate floor. But there came a time where Cato made the decision he was not going to live under the rule of Julius Caesar, and he took his own life. He took his knife and basically gutted himself. The Roman after lunch, I apologize. How was that roast beef? Mine was very good, thank you, by the way. Just enough blood. No. The Roman historian Plutarch describes it, and it's gross, we'll just leave it at that. So Joseph Addison wrote this play, and it was extremely popular, and it was very popular in the colonies. Now, as tensions would grow between the colonies and Great Britain had some issues with this play because they felt that it was kind of inciting this liberty or death thing. And so when Patrick Henry uttered those words, "Give me liberty or give me death," and he held the paper cutter in his hand, and with the word death. Now, we don't have this from him. This is kind of from his contemporaries, and plus just kind of us putting this story together. When he uttered those words, "Give me liberty or give me death," I believe that everybody in that room, all of the delegates, knew exactly what he was talking about. Red Hill, which is the last home and burial place of Patrick Henry, we have the paper cutter. It was donated by a family member, part of my family actually, in 1976. Now, currently, it's not at Red Hill. For the past year and a half, it has been up in Richmond, over in Richmond, at VMHC on display, along with a pair of Patrick's spectacles for their Give Me Liberty 250th display. It soon is going to be coming to the Revolutionary War Museum. It's in storage right now, but I believe in June or July it'll be on display over there if you want to see it. If you miss it there, come to Red Hill. So that's that part of the story, the whole liberty or death thing. I thought that you all might enjoy hearing that. As you mentioned, there are several Patrick Henrys. You have a couple of Patrick Henrys nearby at Williamsburg. Richard Schumann, anybody know Richard Schumann? Yeah, does a fantastic job and has done a fantastic job for a long, long time. Nat Lastly is the new Patrick Henry over there. Anybody know Nat? Nope, you will. He does a fantastic job. So Williamsburg is well represented, but they don't have a descendant. Come on. And I'm also the only fiddle-playing Patrick Henry, so I got that going for me too. A little bit about myself. My name, as was mentioned, Patrick Henry Jolly. I descend from Patrick and his first wife. If you're not familiar with Patrick's life, he was married twice. He and his first wife, Sarah Shelton, had 6 children. She passed away in early 1775 over at Scotchtown up in Hanover County. About 2.5 years later, while governor of Virginia, Patrick Henry married Dorothea Dandridge. If the name Dandridge sounds familiar to you, which it should, her father was cousins with Martha Dandridge, who we know as Martha Washington. Very good. She's also a granddaughter of Governor Alexander Spotswood. So she comes from a well-established family. But I descend from Patrick and his first wife, Sarah. They had 6 children. Patrick and Dorothea had 11 children. So Patrick's the father of 17 children. Those 17 children would produce 77 grandchildren. You all think it's a big deal that I'm a descendant of Patrick Henry? Half you all might be. I don't know, it's quite possible. But Patrick and his first wife, Sarah, they had their 6 children. Sometime around 1770-ish, Sarah started showing signs that something was going wrong with her mind, with her mental capacities. And she ended up passing away in, like I mentioned, early 1775. We don't know exactly when it happened, but we know that it was shortly before the Liberty or Death speech. So she passed away over at Scotchtown. 2 of their daughters, I'm going to get into a little bit of genealogy here, and it gets slightly confusing, but just follow me if you can. 2 daughters, Martha and Elizabeth. Martha is 14 years older than Elizabeth, okay? One of Martha's grandchildren married Elizabeth's youngest daughter. So one of Martha's grandsons married Elizabeth's youngest daughter. So 2 generations, first cousins, once removed. Okay, you got that? That brought that family together, and I'm down here. So coming up, if you go to Elizabeth, the younger of the 2, Elizabeth is my 4th great-grandmother, which makes Patrick and Sarah my 5th great-grandparents. If you come up, hang a different direction, and go to Martha, she is my 5th great-grandmother, which makes Patrick and Sarah my 6th great-grandparents. I'm sorry, the display had it as the 4th and 5th. It's actually the 5th and 6th. So that's my relationship to Patrick Henry. I do not live any place around here. I actually live up in Ohio. Don't throw rocks at me yet, because Ohio was part of Virginia at one time. Wow, my grandfather was governor, so back off. Okay. So I was born and raised in Ohio. I was born in Cincinnati, moved up near Cleveland, east of Cleveland, over 35 years ago, and that's where I call home now. I've been coming down to Red Hill, Patrick Henry's Red Hill, for 27 years. The first time that I came down to do something officially was in 1999 on the 200th anniversary of Patrick's death. We have a fiddle that belonged to Patrick Henry's son, and I had the honor of playing that violin on the 200th anniversary of Patrick's death. They started asking me to do presentations, speaking to school groups and things like that, and I did that more and more and more. I perform the speech every year at Red Hill on the 4th of July, and then I do events like this. 4 years ago, I retired up in Ohio. I still call Ohio home. I have a place up there, but I spend most of my time here in Virginia. And this is what I do. Somebody asked me earlier, is this what you do full time? And I guess I never really thought about it, but yeah, it is. I travel all over the place doing exactly what we're doing here today. I also do events at Red Hill. Has anybody perchance ever been to Red Hill? Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, excellent that somebody raised their hand. But there's a lot of you that have not been to Red Hill, and hopefully we'll see you out there sometimes. So Patrick Henry, just real briefly, Patrick Henry, if you're not familiar with the fact, he was a 5-time governor of the state of Virginia. That obviously, unless things radically change, that will never happen again. He served primarily in Virginia. To the best of our knowledge, and I've been researching his life for 35 years or so, I only have 3 instances where he left what we know today as Virginia. I word it that way because at one time during his governorship, as I mentioned, Ohio and everything from here to there was part of Virginia, extending westward, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, parts of Wisconsin. All that was part of Virginia while he was governor after we declared our independence. Then Maryland. Any Marylanders here? Good. Because little Maryland, they pitched a little fit before they signed the Articles of Confederation. They said, we're not going to do it unless Virginia gives up all that land. So Virginia did, and they signed the Articles of Confederation, which I guess was good. But Patrick Henry, for those that aren't aware, he left, as I mentioned, he served in Virginia. He left Virginia, as we know it, 3 times. Once to go to New York for a convention that didn't happen, and then twice to go to Philadelphia. He was in the First and Second Continental Congress. No, he did not sign the Declaration of Independence because he had left. So did George Washington, so did Peyton Randolph. Well, Peyton Randolph went back. But he had left. George Washington obviously became the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. Patrick Henry, you may or may not be aware of it, became the commander-in-chief of the Virginia forces. So he did not return to Philadelphia, and therefore was not present when the Declaration was established. He resigned his commission, though, in early 1776 and was elected a delegate to the 5th Virginia Convention. We talked about the second one with Liberty or Death. The 5th Virginia Convention was the one where Virginia declared her intent to become independent, established a state government, a constitution, Declaration of Rights, and elected Patrick Henry as the first governor of the state of Virginia. So things worked out for him, but that's why his name is not on the Declaration of Independence, if anybody has ever noticed and wondered why he was absent. So served as 5-time governor of Virginia, then returned to the legislature, was elected as a delegate to go to Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention, but he chose not to attend. We don't have any primary documentation, meaning documentation from him as to why he did not attend. Madison suggested to Washington that Henry did not attend because he wanted to save his fight for ratification. That very well could be, because that is what happened. When it came time for Virginia to ratify, Patrick was living in Prince Edward County at the time, and he was a delegate in 1788. The ratifying convention lasted 23 days. He spoke on 19 of those days for upwards of 8 hours at a time. All right, we're still early. Obviously, he lost the battle there. But it was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. Virginia was the 10th state to ratify the Constitution, and the vote only passed by 10 votes. Many people thought it was going to be a lot bigger than that. I think Madison was leery. He knew the influence that Patrick Henry had, but obviously it passed. But with the passage began the discussion of a Bill of Rights, and so it'll be interesting that that you've got somebody talking about Carey coming in. Archibald Carey and Patrick Henry didn't always see eye to eye, but Patrick really led the discussion to make sure that we have a Bill of Rights attached to our Constitution. And I'm going to end my lecture time by asking a question. I'm stating a point and then asking a question, and then I'm going to open up for questions. We have a Bill of Rights attached to our Constitution now. Now, we know that Patrick Henry was a slave owner. If you didn't, you know now. There were 67 enslaved folks at Red Hill at the time of his death in 1799. Patrick wrestled with the institution of slavery. He knew that it was wrong. Okay? He knew from a moral standpoint it was wrong. But he admitted he couldn't live with it. That's that. Patrick made sure we had a Bill of Rights attached to our Constitution. Patrick is associated with liberty, the people's rights, the people's voice. So a couple questions for you. And just shout out the answers. You know the answers to the question. In Patrick Henry's time, according to the law, was everybody equal? No. Okay. Patrick made sure we had a Bill of Rights attached to our Constitution. Over the past 200 and however many years, the amendments have been added on to. According to the law, think about this question before you politically answer it. According to the law, is everybody in this room equal? According to the law, we're all equal. The law, the amendments don't say guys can do this, girls can do this. The Constitution doesn't say this race can do this race can do that, this religion can do this. According to the law, we are all equal. This is the point I'm going to leave you with. Drum roll, because this is the dramatic part. How do we treat one another? Isn't that it? Patrick Henry, this is the last quote. Patrick Henry, with his last will and testament, included a note, and it was sealed. It was brilliant because he knew it would be opened and preserved. Talking about American independence. Whether this proves to be a blessing or a curse depends upon the use our people make of the blessings which a gracious God has bestowed upon us. If they are wise, they'll be great and happy. But if they're of a contrary character, they will be miserable. Righteousness alone will exalt us as a nation. Thank you very much. So now it's your turn. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So when Patrick Henry gave that speech, was it off the top?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the question was, when he gave the speech, Liberty or Death, was it off the cuff or did he have notes? We don't exactly know the answer to that question. Typically speaking, Patrick would prepare for cases, for arguments, whether they were in the courtroom, whether they were in the legislature, wherever they were. He would prepare, but he did not write out his speeches ahead of time. So he very well might have, known what he was going to say, prepared, maybe made some notes, things like that. We have a desk at Red Hill that was his in the 1770s at Scotchtown. And it's kind of fun to think that perhaps he sat at that desk making notes about the liberty or death speech. On that note, I'll follow it up with the liberty or death speech that we know today, that you heard today. That was actually written by Patrick Henry's first biographer, a fellow by the name of William Wirt. And that book was published in 1817, the first full biography of Patrick Henry. And Wirt talked to eyewitnesses, to a few eyewitnesses of the liberty or death speech, including Thomas Jefferson, and recreated what he believed Patrick Henry said or might have said during that speech. The one thing that the eyewitness accounts, Jefferson didn't give a comment on this, but the others did, we're pretty sure that the ending of the speech is accurate, with the liberty or death and kind of the events leading up to that, some motions that he did leading up to that. Yes, sir?
Since you mentioned that he knew slavery was wrong, did he do anything, did he ever free his slaves or treat them differently because of that action?
All right, the question was, Patrick knew that slavery was wrong. Did he free any of them or treat them any differently? In his will, with the 67 enslaved, he did leave the opening for Dorothea, his second wife, to free one or two of the slaves. And I know that she at least freed one. In regards to the treatment of slaves, we don't really know. We're in the early stages of establishing an organization that's called the Descendants of Red Hill. There's a Descendants branch of the Patrick Henry Memorial Foundation, which I'm a member of, and it's direct descendants of Patrick Henry. Descendants of Red Hill is for people who descend from African Americans who were either enslaved or free at Red Hill. I'll answer your question by saying this. To our knowledge, there's nothing, there are no stories, good or bad, as to how Patrick Henry treated the enslaved at Red Hill. But I will say this, and I'm going to say this with a big caveat, okay? What I'm about to say is not defending Patrick Henry as a slave owner, okay? Just understand that right off the bat. As a legislator, he, along with Jefferson, supported legislation which stopped the transatlantic slave trade into Virginia, okay? As the governor of the state of Virginia, there was a story of a free black woman by the name of Judy. I don't have the primary handwritten document by Henry, but I have a transcript of it. Not with me, but it exists. Judy was a free black woman that in essence wanted to get from point A to point B. She had a small child, and she was terrified that she was going to be picked up as a runaway. Somehow she communicated with Henry, and in Henry's letter it almost sounded like somehow she directly communicated with Patrick. So I don't know how they communicated. Patrick wrote a letter to Edmund Randolph, who was his attorney general at the time, and basically said, this is Judy's story. She needs to safely get from point A to point B. You make it happen, and here's money to make sure that it happens. So that's kind of an example of the question that I asked earlier. According to the law, he did the right thing. He did what he was supposed to do as the governor. This free black woman wanted safe passage to get to wherever it was she was going, and he made sure that that happened. All that to say, we don't really know how he treated them. I wish we did. I wish we did. But we know that according to the law, he did what he was supposed to do. Any other questions or anything like that? Yes, ma'am.
Are you in touch with any other relatives now?
Yeah, there's a descendants branch. So Red Hill is owned by the Patrick Henry Memorial Foundation. The last Henry to live at Red Hill died in 1944. Lucy Henry Harrison. She was a great-granddaughter of Patrick. She had no heirs. After she passed away, the Patrick Henry Memorial Foundation in 1945 purchased Red Hill from her estate, and they're the ones that own it today. We are recognized as the National Memorial for Patrick Henry. We're recognized by the National Park Service, but we are not part of the federal government, no federal funding or anything like that. Everything we get comes from donations and grants. There is a branch of the foundation called the Descendants Branch, and that's made up of direct descendants of Patrick Henry. And there are about 200, 220 dues-paying members that are part of that organization. We do have an annual reunion at some place that is Henry-related. And so it's an active group. We support the mission of the foundation. We help buy artifacts. If there's things that we can fund, we do that. So yeah, there is a fairly active descendants group. Yes?
You may be a little biased, but how would you rank Patrick Henry as a governor?
Okay, I'm gonna answer that question. So she said I may be biased. I don't know why she said that. How would I rank Patrick Henry as a governor? I'll answer that. Then I'm going to answer the question how I think he would be ranked as a founding father. Okay, we'll do that. So first of all, as a governor, every governor has their own challenges, has their own circumstances when they during the time that they serve. Certainly Patrick Henry's first governorship, and they were one-year terms back then, and you were elected by the Assembly. The Virginia Constitution at the time said you could serve 3 consecutive terms, then you had to take a 4-year break, then if they wanted you back, they could invite you back, or elect you back. Patrick served 3 one-year terms, took his 4-year break, was immediately elected again for his 4th and 5th terms. He was elected a 6th term as well, but chose not to accept it. His first term as governor was an extremely unique one because he's now the first elected governor of the free state, the Commonwealth of Virginia. Nobody had ever been in this position before. We're also in the middle of a war. So he had a lot of things to contend with. A new position, a new government, in essence, and a war with a very powerful enemy. His first term was very, and I'm not going to go through all the terms, don't worry. But his first term was very, very active. All of them were, but when you think about this new position, new government, new everything, I think it's important to focus for a moment on that one. His support of Washington was huge. Washington, almost literally up to his dying day, felt gratitude to Patrick Henry, to Governor Henry, and personally as well. Patrick forwarded information that, has anybody ever heard of the Conway Cabal? Okay. There was talk of trying to overthrow Washington as the commander-in-chief, and Benjamin Rush, it was later found out, sent an anonymous letter to Patrick Henry that basically spelled out, this is what we want to do, but it was anonymous. And Patrick, at the end of the letter, it basically said, please throw this in the fire. Don't preserve it. So Patrick immediately sent it off to Washington. And Washington was made aware of this attempt, and he's the one that figured out from the handwriting that it was Benjamin Rush. But he had things like that to contend with and to deal with. There was talk, Jefferson and others, Archibald Carey being one, spread rumors that Patrick Henry wanted to become a dictator, all-powerful dictator. Nothing could be further from the truth. And to prove that, they elected him unanimously the next time around. And if the assembly was afraid that he was going to become a dictator, why would they have elected him again and again and again and again and one more again? So people think that it might have been Jefferson, just kind of spread that around for whatever reason. So I think, again, I can't rate him as a governor compared to others, but I think for what he had to contend with and what he had, he did an excellent job. Now let's talk about him for just a second as a founding father, because a lot of people, they come to Red Hill, I'm just going to say that, they'll come to Red Hill and they pretty much just know 7 words that he said: give me liberty or give me death. They don't know that he was the 5-time governor of Virginia. They don't know that he attended the First and Second Continental Congress. They don't know that he led the fight to make sure we have a Bill of Rights attached to our Constitution. They don't know all this different stuff about him. I firmly believe that if we took a poll right here and we said who would you vote for as the most significant, leader, founding father, we probably all, and I'm not in disagreement, most of us would probably say Washington. Okay, that's legitimate, totally legitimate. I firmly believe, and I really do believe this, that if George Washington was right here and we put him up on that pedestal, he would reach his hand down and take Patrick Henry and bring him right up. Patrick Henry was that big of a deal in his time. We don't see that. Patrick Henry, as I mentioned, left Virginia 3 times. Twice for Philly, once for New York. Once we declared our independence and won our independence and established our government, he never served in a federal position. Washington wanted him to. John Adams wanted him to. He was offered an open Senate seat. He was offered ambassadorships to Spain and France. He was offered the position of Secretary of State, Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. It's not what I want to do. I want to be with my family. No. How about this? 1796. A lot of support. Patrick, you could be our 2nd president. No, it's not what I want to do. John Randolph of Roanoke, not John Randolph of Williamsburg. He was kind of coming on the scene in 1799. Patrick Henry would die in June of 1799. He said, if Patrick Henry had not died, hold on to your seats, Thomas Jefferson would never have become president. Not that Patrick Henry would have, because we don't know if he would have wanted it or not at that point, but he would have had the influence. There was political strife going on, and he would have had the influence to keep Jefferson out of the, out of the White House, but out of the presidency. So I can't directly answer your question as to how I would rank him with governors, but that's... Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How was his family fortune affected by the war? Did he lose it like so many others? Or...
The question is, how was his family fortune affected by the war? Well, in 1776, when we declared our independence, there was none. So Patrick did not come from a wealthy family. Unlike some of the other founders, Patrick became a country lawyer in 1760, broke into the scene in Hanover County in 1763 with what became known as the Parsons Cause. He was just a backcountry lawyer. He did not go to school. He did not go to William and Mary. A lot of his contemporaries would study here or go over to England. His family didn't have the money for that. So he was educated till about the age of 15, failed as a shopkeeper a couple times, failed as a farmer, and finally his family was growing and he's like, I gotta find a career. So he became a lawyer. He studied, he borrowed some law books. Accounts are basically from 6 weeks to maybe 4 or 5 months that he studied. Then he went to Williamsburg and got his license signed by John Randolph and George Wythe. There were times where he actually had to bail his father and father-in-law, John Henry and John Shelton, out of financial problems. So he didn't come from any kind of a financial, of a wealthy family. It wasn't really until, I'll say, the late 1780s, 1790s, that he got himself out of debt by returning to the bar. After he finished his last term as governor, he returned to the bar in Prince Edward County, became a very successful, in-demand attorney. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Randolph murder trial, with the baby, the British debts case. Those are things, Supreme Court justices here in Richmond. And so that was really kind of when he finally got himself out of debt. Patrick Henry was a very frugal person. For those of you who have been to Scotchtown, that's the largest home that he ever bought. And that's for two reasons. First of all, he thought that the size of it might help his wife with her condition. And second of all, he got it really cheap. That was why he had a family fortune. When he died, he had 17 children. When he died, 11 of those children were still alive. Some of them were married and had families of their own. He was able to provide land to all the boys. There were 6 boys. Land to all the boys, and money, substantial amounts of money, to each of his girls, and die 100% completely without debt. Because Red Hill, the home at Red Hill, anybody ever been to Monticello? See pictures of it? Look at a $5 bill, you'll see a picture. Mount Vernon? Okay. So Patrick Henry, a big deal. The house at Red Hill could fit like in this part of this room, about 1/4 of this room. That's the house at Red Hill that 11 people lived in. We talked about 11 children. When Patrick Henry was living at Red Hill towards the end of his life, there were 8 or 9 children living there, plus Patrick and his wife. That's how he could. So to answer your question, he didn't really have any wealth to lose, but he did get himself in debt as a wartime governor, because he did take the wages for the governor, the salary for a governor was symbolically low. They really wanted to make a difference between the royal governor and the governor, the new governors. So the political positions after we became a commonwealth really were public servants. They didn't make a lot of money. So he came out of the governorship pretty deep in debt. Yes, sir.
Check out the question. We have an airport over here in Newport News. It used to be called Patrick Henry Airport.
Okay.
They changed the name of it, which is a lot of names have not changed in the last several years.
Yep.
How do you feel about it? Being a descendant?
I don't like it. Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I understand. No, I shouldn't say I understand. There've been a lot of name changes in the past few years because a lot of our founders were slave owners. We know that. The Bible tells us we're all sinners. We all mess up. I'm going to be real point blank with you all, and if somebody's on the opposite side of this, I apologize. I don't know where everybody here buys their clothes. I know where I buy my clothes, like Walmart, places like that. Slavery might be a little bit different, but the clothes that I wear, not these, are made pretty much by slaves. Does that mean I support the slave trade? Yeah, I can choose not to buy those clothes. I can pay a little bit more. It's more inconvenient. But in the root of it all, and again, please, I'm not defending Patrick Henry as a slave owner, understand that. But we all support it in some way, shape, or form. Do I support the idea of changing the names? No, I really don't. I don't like that personally. If you want to change it for other reasons, that's one thing, but...
Did you know about the airport?
I did not know about the airport. I knew about over in Patrick County and Henry County, there's a community college that used to be called Patrick Henry Community College, and they didn't want the name associated with a slave owner, so they changed it to Patrick and Henry County Community College. Academics. And I'm sorry if I've upset anybody by saying all this. Yes?
Is there a book or biography that you love that you would recommend?
If you ask me in about a year and a half, I'll say, yeah, one by Patrick Jolly. We've got several of them over at Red Hill. The one that I probably most often recommend is one that's written by John Kukla, who used to be a director over at Red Hill, called, there's so many of them, Champion of Liberty. They're available if you contact Red Hill. You can get it through us, Amazon, whatever. With this, I do want to say one thing. I made a mistake today. Well, I've made several mistakes. I couldn't find my paper cutter. I probably put my foot in my mouth with what I said just a few minutes ago, so I've made all kinds of mistakes, but that's okay. I do that. I normally have surveys that I hand out to people that let us know what you thought about the presentation today. And also, if you put your contact information on there, we'll stay in contact with you. But I didn't bring them. I've got a stack of business cards up here that have my email address on them. I would love it if afterwards every one of you came up here and just swamped me and took a card with my email address on it and then contacted me. Tell me what you thought of today. If you disagree with what I said a few minutes ago about name change, tell me you disagree. It's okay. We're allowed to do that. And then if you want, we'll put you on our newsletter. We have a newsletter. We have a lot of things that happen over at Red Hill. We've got a lot of exciting things that are happening coming up this year. The closest of which, a lot of things happen at Red Hill, but we're doing a play. And it's a traveling play, and on June 7th, I think that's a Sunday, whatever that Sunday is, I think it's June, I think the 7th is a Sunday, but whatever that Sunday is, this play is going to be at St. John's. And you can contact redhill.org, the website, and get more information, or you can call Red Hill and get ticket information. We were really creative with the pricing on it. It's $17.76. So I apologize that I did not bring the surveys for people, but I would love it if you took my information and then just shoot me an email. Say, hey, I saw you at work and liked your program or didn't like your program, and here's my email address. Here's my address. Keep in touch. I would love that. I'm going to be hanging out up here. I don't want to take everybody's time. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all. Whenever we talk about founding fathers, we sometimes get into the discussion that's not really comfortable, but it's a part of the past, and these people were real people. And we are very proud of what we do at Red Hill. And speaking of the enslaved, we, as I mentioned, we have an active relationship with descendants of folks that were enslaved. I want to tell you a quick story. A couple years ago, 3 years ago, we have a Quarter Place event. Quarter Place was the hub of the African American community at Red Hill. I say African American as opposed to enslaved. Patrick bought Red Hill in 1794, and remember, way back when I was talking earlier, that the last Henry died in 1944. That's 150 years Red Hill was in the Henry family. So Quarter Place was the hub of the African American community. There's a cemetery there with 147 graves. It's an extremely special place. But a couple years ago, we were preparing for our Quarter Place tribute, and there was a woman who has since become a board member of the Patrick Henry Memorial Foundation. And but she was going to be a speaker. She descended from somebody who was enslaved at Red Hill. And I stay, as I mentioned, I live in Ohio, but I stay on the property in a house, in a guest house. And she stayed there. So you had a descendant of Patrick Henry with a descendant of somebody who was enslaved, staying under the same roof. That was probably the first time that had probably ever happened. and it was a very special, a special time. She and I talked a lot, shared a lot, and it was a special time. But we do a lot. I'm very proud of what Red Hill does for the African American community and the story of the enslaved at Red Hill, because they were obviously a big part of it. So thank you again. I'll be up here if anybody wants to talk about anything or get a call. Thank you.
Patrick?
Oh, okay. So sometimes I'm asked, okay, can you tell me something like that other people don't know about Patrick Henry? And Patrick Henry grew up over in Hanover County, and he taught himself how to play the fiddle. And we know that he played at Red Hill as well. And so, as I mentioned, not only am I a Patrick Henry interpreter, I'm also a descendant and a fiddle player. All right, so would you like to hear something?
Yeah.
Free bird. Free bird. I'll play two things for you. The first thing is something that I wrote. I mentioned that the first thing I ever did was the 200th anniversary of Patrick's death. I'm not a great fiddle player, but this is a song that I wrote called Red Hill for the 200th anniversary. I ended up not playing it. I played Amazing Grace, which was probably more fitting, but I did go down to the grave later that day with the Henry fiddle and by myself played this, but I'll play it for you. And under the table, you can even stomp your feet, okay?
Darcy seems to have stepped out momentarily, so I'm going to handle the raffle for him. Oh, okay, I see you back there. We're going to